Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today is December the 2nd, and today we have Nexus Nights. What's
Hi
up,
guys.
guys? Oop, there we go. So, unfortunately, everyone today is like sick or having holiday stuff still, so we're a little short-handed tonight. But, as Christine pointed out, it is.
Oh, did you want me
It
to say
is.
it?
that was the setup for you.
Oh, my bad. It's just feminine fabulous in here. It's really hashtag femfab.
Oh gosh. We can just call it the Long Hair Club. How's that sound?
Yeah. Long hair don't care.
Long Hair Don't Care Club.
Are you okay, Shira?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So today we're gonna talk about the American scene during the big shuffle and everything, as well as talking about some of the maps in Heroes of the Storm. But first, before we do that, since it is the day after New Year's, I want us to go around and just say what our New Year's Heroes resolution is. That is your goal
Shira.
related to heroes.
Be a better support.
You're
What do you
always a
think
great
you need
support.
to work on most as a support
Not
Shira?
dying. Not dying.
Not face
That's a
tanking is the
strong
Uther.
Let's see. If I had to choose a hero's resolution, um, it would probably be to play more seriously because I kind of have two modes. I either laugh at everyone or get angry at everyone, but I want to be able to just focus and play seriously and like just space all of that out and just play the game and try to play more solo queue. I think that's what it'll be. Play more solo queue ranked.
Fair enough. You'll probably give up on that within like 10 games.
I'm rank 5 right now.
I
Gone
promise
from rank
you.
1. The dream.
Yeah, my goal is to get back to my rank 1, 2 as well.
Yeah.
And it's been slow going, but I've slowly worked my way from 10 back to 6.
Respect.
And working and I found the best way to do that is just play like 2 or 3 games of Hero League a day and then just let it go. Because after that, I'll start getting tilted and start going crazy, and so I just don't want to deal with that. But I want to get back to rank 1, and I want to be doing more consistent writing and podcasts and stuff this year. So those are my heroes goals.
That's good. Something I do want to know. I know we talked about this previously. We talked about when the Christmas bundles were first released. What did you buy? Have either of you bought anything since?
No, I
Christmas
stopped
right?
spending money. Proud of
Christmas right?
myself.
Yes. Christmas-wise or just in general because you decided that you deserved it?
And since the sale, I haven't bought anything else.
Okay.
Because only Rhaegar would be my interest, but I would want to just buy Rhaegar, but you can't. You have to buy
You
the
are
bundle.
much stronger people than I.
Wait, you can't just buy the reindeer Rhaegar?
Not by
So
itself.
sad. That's so sad. It's the
So I
only
know.
mount that Rhaegar can use.
Hmm.
The only like cool mount
Is it
you
part
just
of
have
the
to buy a
second
new
chance
skin.
bundle?
I don't know.
I think if
Yep,
you
yep.
have the Great Faller Winter Rhaegar skin, you can use that mount, can't you?
I don't think you
about the
can
mount,
change
but
mounts.
It's the
I'm
Rhaegar
just saying
skin.
that there was a Reddit thread a little while back about how people were upset that Rhaegar couldn't choose different mounts.
Well, because he turns into a wolf.
Yeah, but you could turn into like different
Yeah.
wolves. See, that would be
I think
cool.
you can only get the skin through the second chance
Mm.
bundle and the Winter Veil bundle.
Or what you can do is you can buy everything else in the bundle, and then when you buy the bundle, you're just buying Rhaegar.
Well, so the problem with people giving me cash for Christmas is I'm like, look at all of this money that I suddenly have.
Mm.
So the last time we talked about buying skins when that sale was on, after the episode I caved and I bought Pajama there.
Woo!
And the addiction has just continued.
Oh, no.
Today I got home from vacation and I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, these skins are still available. So
You
I
got the
bought the second
Sylvanas
chance
skin.
bundle.
Oh,
I bought
okay.
the second chance bundle first because I'm like, okay, like this is kind of cool. But then I'm looking and I'm like, but now the Winter Veil bundle is 60% off. And I have these heroes. Why not? So I ended up buying that too.
Oh, you
And it's not that I
did.
regret it, but I went from spending 0 to 60 pretty quickly.
Well,
Don't worry.
the good news is you didn't buy a stim pack, and hopefully you'll be able to pay rent, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No problems there. School's
It's
still
like
up in the air.
it's like
You know
it's
what?
fine. I just bought a bunch of
Like,
skins, but now I can no longer pay for school or rent. Everything's great.
yeah. Who needs school, right? That's what esports is for.
All right. Okay, let's get into things. Discussion. All right. So I wanted to talk about the what happened to my notes? My notes got exploded.
You
Um,
used enter.
So, today we're going to talk about the American scene. I want to say post shuffle, but the fact is we're still in the middle of player shuffles. Lots of people leaving teams and teams disbanding and becoming free agents, and other teams picking them up and making trades, etc., etc. So, I'm just gonna go through and list all of the known changes so far, just to get you guys up to date. First of all, Zuna and Arthalon left Tempo Storm right after BlizzCon and created the Bob Ross fan club. And they picked up Erho and McIntyre, who were originally on Barrel Boys, I believe. I think that's right.
I believe so.
Um, and in the wake of that, Tempo Storm was looking to reform their team with 2 new players. But for some reason, Dreadnought, out of nowhere, just retired. And so they're still looking for other people. They found Srey and Goku. Goku is former Luminosity. Srey is one of the top-ranked Hero League players. And they are still looking for a 5th. Do you guys know who their 5th is yet? No? Okay. And then Arthalon leaves Bob Ross fan club and goes to C9, and Fan goes to Bob Ross fan club. So there was a bit of a swap there, and I think there were talks about that before BlizzCon even started.
Yeah, that one we saw coming. Not necessarily before BlizzCon, but talks during BlizzCon were happening. They were just not public knowledge. So
Okay. Insomnia leaves 2ARC. That may not be a big deal. I'm not sure. I haven't really watched 2ARC much.
not really.
Complexity disbands. Jaximus retires. And Caterpillar, Hans, and Schrummel are all looking for a new team. I chatted briefly with Cattle, and he said that he's got a pretty good team in mind, so hopefully he finds a good home along with the other 2. Cognitive releases Glaurung in Hospital. They did on Christmas Eve, which was kind of the saddest thing in the world.
Well, I think they knew it was coming for a little while, but they just
Right.
wanted to get it out of the way before the new year began.
Right.
That's probably how it worked out.
So those 2 have been released. Those are, I think, pretty high-ranked free agents. They're going to find probably a
For
good
sure.
team somewhere. I've
sure.
heard there have been some possible changes to more like Genius's roster at some point. I don't know the details on that, but that could also come about. I think those are all the changes that have occurred. Let me know if you...
Those are the most noteworthy ones for right now. I mean, we've talked about some of the previous changes in rosters in past episodes.
Right.
As far as Tempo Storm goes, we knew that Zuna and Arthalon was like, we knew they were going to break up.
Right.
I think I was surprised that they made a team, but I'm okay with the fact that Zuna and Arthalon went and made a team. So far, they've been performing quite well. As for Tempo Storm, honestly, I haven't been overwhelmed or underwhelmed by them. To quote Sean Connery in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, I'm waiting to be impressed. Because they've got a good lineup going. Especially, like,
I mean...
with Fan on the lineup now, too.
Right.
I quite like Fan as a player. I think that he can complement them very well. So hopefully now that he's officially part of the roster, which was one of those things where it was in talks for a while, but because they were competing, it didn't switch over until now. Now that he's officially on the roster, I'm excited to see what happens. The 2-arc change doesn't really. That's another I'm waiting to be impressed team to me.
Right.
Like, that team has never really stood out. I mean, like, can you think of anything off the top of your head that really makes you go, yeah, 2-arc?
Well, they're a fairly new team, so they haven't had a lot of time to get things together.
Exactly. So there's a
I think
lot.
they
There's a
have
lot to
some-
be. Yeah. Sorry.
Some
What?
potential there.
Yeah, definitely have potential, but we're still waiting to see it, I think is a good way to put it.
Right.
Cognitive releasing Glaurung in hospital, I don't think a lot of people saw that coming or knew that it was coming.
Hmm.
That being said, I do agree with you that they are pretty strong free agents, and if they want to get a team, they will find a team. Now
I'm a little bit worried for Cog's lineup now, honestly, because I feel like to some degree Hospital and Glaurung were like the superstars of that team.
They made the team a little bit.
Yeah, I mean Silo is really good and Iakona's pretty good as well. Like I feel like a large part of their success dwelt on those two playing really, really well.
I agree
I
with
don't
you
know.
when it comes to hospital. I think with Glaurung, he became a bit of a face for Cognitive.
Hmm.
I think is a fair thing to say. Whether or not he was really a pillar play-wise, he was hit or miss. And I don't know if that was a difference in play style that made it that way, or if that's just him as a player. I
think
guess
that's
we'll
just
see
him.
once he's on another team. But Hospital for sure, like he was someone that he and Iacona are honestly, in my opinion, the two players on COG that I really rooted for.
Right.
So to see him go is interesting. I don't know the rhyme or reason behind those drops, to be honest. I shouldn't say drops because it might have been mutual, but
Well, according to
sake of the
Glaurung,
situation.
officially he said that he felt like a lack of freedom, that
yeah.
his style differed from everyone else's. So
Yeah, and I can definitely see why that would make him less of a power player, in my eyes at least. Like, I can definitely think back on tournaments and go, okay, like, it makes sense that he didn't really stand out there.
right.
So that definitely, with that, if that's what he said, sorry, then yeah, I can definitely understand that change. Yeah, if Hospital doesn't get a team, I'll be surprised. If he doesn't, I feel like it's because he didn't want one, not that people didn't really want him.
Right.
Because I've always been impressed with his play. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that fixes itself up. And they have teams in the next month, and we'll get to see them play.
Excellent.
Now,
Yeah.
when it comes to Murloc Geniuses,
Okay, go ahead.
they've had some iffy results recently. Especially by the end of the year last year, you could see them starting to burn out. And they had a lot of success late last year just because they had to deal with all of that drama with their old sponsor. And when they
Oh, yeah.
finally started coming back from that, it was a really good feeling. It was like, yeah, look at us go, we're doing it. But then they had issues with management. And then they had issues with morale because things were just starting to fall apart a little bit. But now that it's a new year, they had that break, they had that time to kind of sit down by themselves and go, okay, what do I want? And I think this goes for all of the teams and all of the players and all of the free agents out there too. They had that time to just take a breath and go, what do I want? What do I need to work on? What are my goals? And so far, the people I've talked to are saying that like their scrims have been pretty solid. And even before we went into Christmas break, they were starting to pull it back together. Obviously, we won't know for sure until tournaments start back up, but they'll be part of Heroes Rising. So we'll get to see their like current roster in action again. And if that doesn't work out, then I can see possible changes happening. But for the time being, there aren't any specific plans, to my knowledge.
I see. All right, cool. That's good to hear. I'm glad they're. I want to see them be consistent because I think especially watching them recently in the Enter the Storm and some of the other minor tournaments that have been going on in the past month. They've looked like one of the top teams, and maybe that's just because like Tempo Storm and Cloud9 have kind of dissolved, and they're not like the absolute two best teams in the world, or like in America anymore. But Relic Genius has looked really solid, and I think they have a lot of potential to go really far if they can just patch up those consistency errors. Two of the teams that I think are probably gonna surprise a lot of people is Stellar Lotus and Team Blaze. These are two teams that kind of came out of nowhere, and most people don't know much about them. For instance, Team Blaze has Claudius and Jason and Battery. We're all, I think, within the top 100 of the leaderboards for like the past 2 months. And I actually played against Jason last night with Valver, and he's the real deal. He's really, really good. And Stellar Lotus has Wiz, who is the #1 person on the leaderboard. Absolutely fantastic player. But we haven't really seen either of them go into any big tournaments or have any kind of huge success yet. But I think they're on their way, for sure.
Well, I mean, even looking at Stellar's former lineup, like they have players who are on Bob Ross and on Cognitive right now. So they've only really upgraded. So I'm really excited to see what they have to offer because, like you said, so far we haven't seen anything really. And a lot of people don't know who they are, which is kind of a travesty. But I don't know. I believe in them. I can definitely see why that's one of the teams that you're looking out for in this year.
I think that's good too. I haven't watched a lot of Elevate or Panda Global. I know Panda Global, aka Cabo Wolves, has been struggling for a long time. They've always been a pretty good team, but like not one of the best. So they can probably pull it out this year.
When it comes to Elevate, I think I'll use the term raw to describe how they play. They definitely they need to put in some practice to get to the pro level, I would say. I mean, they're technically a pro team, but you can see a difference between a new team and a team like Tempo Storm or Cloud9.
Right.
So they've got to put some work in and they've got to put some finesse in order to actually reach that level of pro play. But they've got some promising players. It's just so far I haven't really seen that promise flourish at all. So hopefully they can show up to some more tournaments and get it together. But I think my word for them is going to be finesse. That's what they need. They need some finesse and they need to tighten up all of the loose edges because there's quite a few of them.
All right, I believe that. You have anything to add, Shiro? Because I know this isn't your strong suit, but do you have any opinions or ideas?
No, because I have zero clue about the competitive scene.
That's all good. So just a quick question, Christine. So who do you think is going to be the strongest team when we come out of everything? Well, actually, we'll just say Heroes Rising. Okay, if we take just Heroes Rising, who do you think is going to be the top American team?
The top. So I'll be honest. I'm just going to take a quick second to double check which teams are part of it because I know half of them, but if I get them wrong, I don't want to have that egg on my face. I think that with Fan on their roster, Bob Ross Fan Club is going to look pretty good. Cloud9 is already a solid team. They had a little bit of trouble as they were leaving China. We saw that. But I'm hoping they've got it together. Panda Global still a little bit weak. Tempo Storm, don't really know what to expect. They're going to be strong because their players are strong, but I don't know if they'll be top. Murloc, I want to have faith, but it'll really depend on how the other teams play. I mean, they've been doing a good job so far, but they had a rough end of the year. So going into next year, it takes some time to get over that. So I'm going to say probably Bob Ross and Cloud9 are the ones to watch. But Panda and Cognitive could surprise us just because they've got new lineups and like they have that potential. They just need to tap it.
Okay. Yeah, I can
That's
see
my
that.
prediction.
I think with Cloud9 getting Earthlon, I think that's a huge upgrade.
Hmm.
And they already had an incredibly strong roster before. With Earthlon on there, I can't see them as being anything other than completely dominant the first half of this year. But we'll have to see.
I try to keep the new player factor and the team synergy factor in mind when I think about it, because yeah, they're all strong players, but if they're not used to playing with one another, although I don't think that's going to be an issue.
I think it'll work out for them pretty well.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on. This is kind of an abrupt transition. I couldn't find a really good way to make this smooth. But next, I want to talk about maps in Heroes of the Storm. This is something that we've seen that makes Heroes of the Storm really unique as a MOBA. It's something that kind of sets them apart from other games like League of Legends and Dota, because as far as I'm aware, I don't want to be like totally wrong, but as far as I'm aware, there's only one map for competitive play in those games. Is that correct?
For competitive
So?
play, typically, yes.
Okay, all right. Because I know that what is it? It's the domination thing for League
Dominion.
of Legends. Dominion. I know that is played, but that's never played like professionally, as far as I know.
Not necessarily true, but it's not the popular, like, focused on esport for
Okay.
them.
All right. Anyways, the point is that Heroes of the Storm really stands out because it's got all of these different unique maps, and because of that, players and teams kind of have to force themselves to change strategies and change compositions depending on the map, and that can have kind of an overwhelming influence on how things are balanced and how well teams do on certain maps versus other maps. So, what do you think some of the upsides to having different battlegrounds is? Hero?
At least it keeps it. I want to say fresh, but like it's nice to see something different
Keeps it exciting.
instead of like the same thing. I mean, both have their like ups and downs. Like if it's the same thing all the time, it's consistent, and it's not like you always have to like change and balance the map and all that stuff. It's like it'll just be like constant and somewhat even on both sides, even. So there's that part. But then when it's like constant changing, it's like at least there's something different. They go, oh yay! It's like Dragon Shrine, or no, it's Dragon Shire, Dragon Shire,
Yes.
or like I don't know if I really have a favorite map. Can't remember maps. I haven't played in a while. But like, hey, it's Booty Bay or something.
Booty
Oh,
Bay.
horrible.
Booty Hearts Bay.
That's the name now.
I love Booty Heart Bay. It's the greatest.
I don't know.
That big Booty Heart
But-
Bay.
Booty booty rocking
But
everywhere.
yeah, I mean, like changed, like just it keeps it like not so stale. That's
Keeps it
better.
fresh.
See, that's better.
Yeah, I getcha.
Yeah.
Christine?
I think so. I'd like just prefacing this. I used to play League of Legends semi-competitively, so I have a bit of a background in that. So this isn't an unfounded statement. At least when it comes to League of Legends, they have more balancing issues than Heroes does, having the number of maps that Heroes has. So while from a fan's perspective, League of Legends and Dota is easier to watch because you see the map and then you learn the map. And the heroes might be different, but you're like, okay, but I know that that's a camp and it gives experience. And I know that in the river that will spawn. Or like I know that dragon will come up and dragon will give you a buff. Or baron will give you a buff for League of Legends. So from a viewer's perspective, it's a lot easier to watch League of Legends and Dota and learn it. With Heroes of the Storm, you don't have that advantage. You have to learn the heroes and you have to learn the maps because, like, there's a trend on what maps most teams will choose. But at the same time, you could have one of however many. How many maps do we have right now? 9? Is that an underestimate?
I think in total there's... Oh gosh, I knew this like a month ago.
I know. The number slipped
I
my
feel like
mind.
it's like 9 or 10.
Yeah.
Somewhere around
Definitely more than one. So you could figure out what the map does, but not quite know the heroes. And then you're on a new map and you have to figure it out. You might be like, oh, I recognize Jaina. Like, she does frost stuff. But I have no idea who anybody else was because I'm too busy trying to figure out how this map works. So from a viewer's perspective, having one makes more sense. From a competitive perspective, I like the change in pace. I like that every single hero can be viable depending on the map for the most part. And I like the fact that with League of Legends and Dota, typically you will see the same heroes over and over. And there's a sort of similar situation in Heroes where it's like, okay, this mage is important. Like, there'll be a Kael'thas, or Kael'thas will be banned typically. There'll be a Jaina, or there won't, like... Those ones you can kind of predict, but you're able to switch the meta around, and you're able to go, okay, I'm going to play Nova this map. Or you can pull out the Murky, and do the Murky comp. And it works because it's a different map. They have that ability to go, okay, this hero actually is viable and can be used. So you don't get Caitlyn's every game. You don't get Callista's every game. You don't get Enigma's every game. Like, you can get a huge variety of heroes. And that's why most heroes, like, I think there was 7 or 8, which sounds like a lot, but compared to the percentage of League of Legends and Dota heroes that aren't played, that's not very many heroes that aren't being played in a given tournament. So I think that speaks volumes for the variety that the maps allow for heroes as well. And I think it's a good thing.
Yeah,
but it depends on your goal.
I think in some ways, like, it makes the meta in some ways develop a little bit slower. Right? I guess it's slower and faster depending on how you look at it. Like, if you look at a game like League of Legends, like, the meta kind of develops really slowly. Like, they may make a change to a bunch of items, and then it slowly takes like 2 or 3 months for that to fully kick in, and then by the end of that, by the end of those couple months, then you'll always see those same like 20 to 30 champions always. But in Heroes of the Storm, you have such a wide variety that that is kind of like a counter to meta. Like, you can pick something that's counter to the current meta at the time, and it will work on a certain map. And so it, like, the meta, like, evolves a little bit slower in that way, I feel like. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think the other thing too is that, like, Dota has had the same heroes for what, 2 decades now, technically.
It's been a while,
I mean, the
I
balance
guess.
has changed a bit because it's Dota 2 now, but it's the same ones.
Right. I
So
still
for
recognize like
anything-
all the heroes from like Warcraft 3. Whenever I play Dota, I'm like, oh, that's just Demon Hunter. Okay, I got it.
Pretty much.
I don't know. I think that when you're looking at something like when they broadcast Heroes of the Dorm, for new viewers, it's a little bit harder to watch. And for someone who's not very used to the game, it can be a little bit confusing watching a competitive match that then goes on to 4 or 5 different maps. Whereas for League of Legends and Dota, you can watch that competitively, and you might think, oh, well, like, this is the same thing over and over again, but it's just like playing on the same football field, right? Like, you might have different players out on the field, but you know what the field is going to look like. You know what to expect at X yard line, right? So in that sense, they've definitely got a benefit. But I think keeping the game exciting, Heroes wins, having multiple maps. But if you're trying to get viewers, then it's League and Dota.
Right. That's an interesting way of putting it. So we've talked a little bit about the way that it works for balance-wise. It makes things a little bit difficult to balance. So what happens when you have, like, would you consider a huge downside when you have some heroes that are overly strong on certain maps, like Sylvanas on Haunted Mines or the Lost Vikings on Infernal Shrines?
Are we talking ranked play or professional play?
We'll say both, because why not? I don't know. Explain the difference. in what you mean.
All right. So the difference to me is that in ranked play we don't have bans. In professional play you do have bans. So if you find that you just cannot handle a Sylvanas on Haunted Mines in a professional game, one, don't pick that map, or two, ban her out. Like, there are two very quick solutions to that problem. In ranked, you don't get that. You don't get the ban, and you don't
Steal
get to
it.
pick whether or not you're playing. Yeah, you can't just go, oh, it's mine.
I always
so-
first pick Sylvanas on Haunted Mines, so
Well,
Suck
yeah,
it.
and I mean that's the thing. Like, you can first pick her, or you can try to build a composition to lock her down. Like, Sylvanas is not a hero that can't be countered. She's a thorn in your side, and she's good on that map. But that doesn't mean that she's the be-all, end-all. And there's a reason she doesn't have a 100% pick ban rate. So, while she has an advantage, I think the fact that on other maps she's not as strong, it makes up for it. It makes people have to take account, I guess, of her and change their strategy around it. And it makes the game interesting because of it.
Stun and focus.
on and
That's-
focus.
Pretty much, yeah.
I want to avoid going off on a tangent, but like I just want to
Oh,
I want to
did.
talk about this so much.
Okay.
So when you say that she's good on that map, but she's not particularly overpowered, you think that's a bit of a commentary on the fact that Heroes of the Storm heroes are not quite as strong or unique as some of the heroes in League of Legends. Like when a hero is strong in League of Legends, they're kind of dominant, and that's why you end up with those certain like 20, 30 heroes that are always picked. And I wonder if that's because it's always played on the same map, or because like there is less strength in the heroes kit, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I get what you're putting down. I think that when it comes to a game like League of Legends, the roles are a lot more concrete. Like, you see a ranged assassin, you know they're going to auto attack. Like 90% of the time, they're going to be an auto attacker. Probably they're going to build crit. Like, you know what they're going to, like, you know what to expect. With heroes, you only have a few heroes, like, say, Raynor, who are just going to pummel your face in like that. So you have to be able to adapt a little bit more. And you don't get that raw damage that you see in League of Legends as much, because there's a lot more.
Fluidity.
It's a lot more about utilizing camps and like focusing on the mechanics of the map that you're on than it is about just 1v1 hero fights or 2v2 hero fights. So you might be farming a lane, but if you look at a lane 10 minutes in League of Legends, you've just got someone auto-attacking, like one or two shotting a minion, and like the minions are kind of like la-di-da and don't do that much damage until you actually get into their base and push down inhibitors. With heroes, minions kind of kick your butt, and minion camps kick your butt. So there's a huge focus on working together instead of just having one hero run around, unless you're Nova. So I think it looks like heroes pack a bigger punch in a game like League of Legends or Dota, because the focus is on what the heroes do. But because I think, and this might be biased now that I've just been playing it for so long, I think that Heroes is much more focused on the mechanics and the like small nuances of each map. The focus is on how you utilize them best. So it at face value it feels weaker, but it's not so weak when you get a pyroblast to the face. It's just that's that.
Okay, fair enough. You have any thoughts on
I'm
that,
not sure if
Kira?
that actually answered like what you were asking, if I misinterpreted
No,
it or not.
I think that more or less did.
I mean, that's what like when you talk about League of Legends. Like, I never played League of Legends, but I did play Dota. But hearing from other people that I know who played both sides or something like that, like, um, you see that League of Legends, like most of the heroes are very strong enough on their own that they can take care of themselves. Rather, versus Dota, you sometimes probably only like carries or offlaners can, but like they still have to kind of like semi work as a team, but it's not as reliant as heroes when everybody has to work together in order to bring down somebody. Because it's like if you're just like 1v1ing heroes, unless you're like a super crazy powerful hero that can do that, like nobody
Yeah, I dominate lanes as Malfurion. I dominate them.
But yeah.
Mouth, you just can't beat him. But no, I agree with that observation, Shiro. I think that League of Legends is definitely lower on the list of like priority for team fighting, at least early to mid game, than Dota, and then like Heroes is pretty much from the top. You should be working as a team.
Yes.
So-
It's
So I
such
agree with
a
that.
team-orientated game. So if you want to solo queue and just want to be by yourself, you're probably better playing League of Legends or Dota.
There
No,
goes my resolution.
I just want to make sure I got what you said right, Christy.
Okay.
All right. So were you saying essentially that some of the focus in Heroes of the Storm, well, actually a lot of focus is less on, in particular, how your hero works and more on playing to the map objectives of each individual maps versus League of Legends, which only has one map. So more of the power is shifted towards the differences between the heroes.
I think there's a lot more focus on making sure that your heroes work with the map over countering, I've found,
Okay.
with
All right.
heroes than League of Legends because it's just one map and you know what your objectives are. It's a lot more about plays and counterplays.
Right. Okay.
I'm
Fair
not sure
enough.
if that quite makes sense, but
No, I get you. I get you. That makes sense. So we talked about how the maps affect the game. Let's talk about the newest map, Towers of Doom. Now, if any viewers have watched any of our previous episodes where we've talked about Towers of Doom, we're generally very opinionated on this map. But we'll try to keep it civil. First off, I'm just gonna start off with a discussion, a completely, I guess, like hands-off discussion. We're just gonna talk about how the map works. We're not gonna talk about whether it's imbalanced or dumb or not. We're just gonna say
just
how
throwing
the
those
map
words in there.
works.
But
All right. So, would anyone else like to explain all the rules? I'm just throwing that out there. I can do it, or you can do it if you'd like to.
do you want like the quick and painless, like this is what this is what it does, or do you want like an in-depth explanation?
How do you win on this map?
You capture 4 altars. I believe there's 4. Yeah, there's 4. There's 4 altars on. No.
There's 4.
Okay.
For
Wow, I need to stop questioning myself.
You
Okay.
got this.
There are 4 altars on the map. Every couple of minutes, 1 or 2 will spawn. Sometimes 3 if the game hates you. And based on the number of keeps you have at the time, X amount of damage will be dealt to the enemies. Nexus. Okay. Man, thinking about
All right.
League of Legends, I'm so thrown off. Okay, this is all you. This is
All right.
all you.
Okay. So you cannot attack the enemy's core directly. The only way to attack the enemy's core is through different ways of scoring. And the way that you do this is either you capture altars. That's your main way of scoring. Is every once in a while altars will come up. They're a little bit like the tributes for Cursed Hollow. You'll have 1 to 3 pop up, and if you capture it, you get however many points you have based on however many points you have based on the amount of bell towers that you have. So your core counts as 1 point, and then for each bell tower you have, that's an additional point. So usually it's 4. But it allows you to capture an enemy's fort. If you capture their fort, it becomes yours. So you do a total of 5 damage because you have 4 forts now plus your core. You can also score by completing boss. Boss hits like a truck, but if you can beat the boss, it scores you 4 more points. Frankly,
He hits like a truck.
yes, he hits like a truck, Tonka truck, something like that. And then the final way that most people don't know, the final way to score is you can capture mercenaries and escort them past a heap, and they will actually run in and score on the core.
They will run at any building though. So if there is any enemy building in the way, they will run at that before they will run towards
Yeah.
the enemy's base.
Yes. So that is the very super straightforward way of how to play Towers of Doom. So let's talk a little bit about the limiting factors. So that allows us to do cool things, and it's a cool new experimental type of way of doing things because you no longer have to push down lanes to get to your enemy core. You can just get it by scoring off of these altars. What are some of the limiting factors of that? On the
You
floor?
can't wipe a team and win. Even if you're late game, if you wipe the team, the best you can do is get a couple camps and escort them and hope for the best. And if you're lucky, maybe an altar or two will spawn and you'll be able to capture those without contest. But otherwise, you win a team fight and it's like, yay, experience. And it's rather anticlimactic.
Yeah, that's not fun. Shiro?
You can win team fights at the altar then. Get ahead in levels. I don't know. I mean, yeah, pretty much. Well, can't really heal your core either. I mean, there's no shield on it, from my recall.
Yeah,
Nope.
it's all based off of points.
Yeah, so I mean, I have been in games where it's like our core has been completely like dominated by the other team, and we're just like probably 2 hits away, but somehow we were able to come back for like another part of the game and not make like, and they can't score. But in the end, like when it's like all of the like altars, like 3 altars or whatever go up, it's really hard. It's just
Right.
like unwinnable. It's like,
It reminds me of that old the old thing on Sky Temple back when it used to spawn all 3 temples at one time. It's like every time that happened, it'd just be like, oh my god, just get on one.
yeah.
It'd just be absolute pandemonium.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it does like even though I don't like the map, it has yield probably interesting things in the game, I guess you could say.
Mhm.
Like I wouldn't doubt that part. Like I've had games where it completely sucked, but there has been games where it's like, "Oh my god, and we're coming back." And maybe we
Right.
win or maybe not, but yeah, I do.
I think one of the things that upsets me quite a bit is I feel like that forts don't really give much of a positional advantage. If you take any other map, like when you kill a fort, that they no longer have a place that they can retreat to safely, and it becomes kind of it slowly opens up the map as more forts go down, right? And you have less places to retreat to, and going outside of your main base becomes riskier and riskier, especially if you're only a single person. But in Towers of Doom, once you kill a fort, it sits there, it revives as your own, and then the enemy team can just sit there and kill it like 60 seconds later. So it feels like it doesn't really give much of a positional advantage. It does to a small degree because the map is laid out retardedly so that yeah, like
The politically correct people that we are.
sorry. Okay, it's laid out badly in my opinion because that it cuts off like all routes through that area, and that can cause some problems with trying to get flanks and things like that. So
I think that if the bases were a little bit smaller, then that would remedy that problem. Because the
so.
limitation to your base, like in how close you can get before it starts firing on you, is just out of range of the longest auto attacker's auto attack.
Right.
So you can pretty much just sit back and attack it and almost take no damage. And I think if there was more space there for an enemy team to say maneuver behind and go in front of your base, it would make for better counterplay. But you don't have that opportunity because there's just no room.
Okay. I can see that. I just... Oh, this map. All right. So, one of the other things that I've noticed, going back to the team fights thing, is because team fights don't matter as much when altars aren't up, during the time when altars are not up, I always tell my team, just back off. Like, don't try to do anything, because there's no point to it. Like, if you pick someone off, or you try to do like a big team fight and you win, you might have like a small advantage in experience, or you can like push down a fort and get a little bit more experience, but it doesn't uniquely affect you in any long-term way. And the best long-term play is just sit back and wait for the altars to spawn and then go for a team fight.
I think it depends which altars spawn, because the other side of the coin to the minion camps that spawn is that their auto attacks are considered like catapult attacks, so they are AoE, and they pack a huge punch. So let's say that wow, my words are failing me. Let's say an objective spawns bottom. You can just capture a camp and then try to fight them in lane. And if you can do the fight in lane with those extra minions, that's actually quite a bit of AoE damage you get off on their team, and they have quite a bit of health. So it's almost like having like half a hero, I guess. Maybe a Lost Viking or two along for the ride if you've got minions with you.
Okay.
And that's something that often is ignored. Because you're right, like a lot of the time, between objectives, you just kind of soak experience and try not to die. Because auto attackers especially are very good on that map. And for me at least, when the scaling changes went in, that's the map when I realized how stupid Falstad was. And it was just like, all right, I'm just gonna sit here, I guess. Like, that's all I can do. Now that I've had some time to come to terms with Towers of Doom, there's a lot more you can do. Things like poking a fort down, a bell tower down, if you will, to almost dead but not quite dead, so you can cap it before shrines come up. Things like capturing the camps to help in a team fight, which seems strange but actually works pretty well. And things like picking up Abathur before the enemy team does. Like, those are things that you can do now. So while it does feel very limiting, and I hate the fact that I can't actually like go to their base, it does make you appreciate both death timers and the scaling changes a lot more.
Yeah, I can see that. I think for me, it's just like, it's so frustrating to just like to be trapped in that state in between altars where you're like, well, we could capture a camp, I guess, and like you could do that, but then like your push fails and then just go back to soaking and wait for the altars to So it feels like there are a lot less options available to you, but
well, I mean, that's one of the other decisions you have to make too, right? It's, okay, so now that we're in mid to late game, do we just focus on, say, top lane? Do we push it down, and then do we escort a camp to their base to get some damage done? Or do we wait for a pick? Do we try to win a team fight before shrines spawn so that way we can get boss and shrines? And you have to kind of like... People aren't good at that map yet. So making those decisions is really friggin' hard. And I think that's part of why so many people hate it. Because, like, you either do nothing, or there's a ton of decisions you could make, but you just can't get the teamwork together to do it.
Well, the thing is also, I feel like the alternatives for options that you do have are rather weak. Like I said, like you can cap a merc camp and try to push with it, but that's not like a super strong... That's not like an amazing timing or like a super strong move.
It doesn't feel as good as getting a keep.
So
on a regular map.
it doesn't feel like you're doing something like you get mercs to push down a lane and then you can pressure another lane, and if they don't react properly, they'll lose 2 forts or something like that. You and that would be a big deal in another map where forts really mattered and that positioning really mattered. But in this one, the minions just kind of explode on their towers, and it's like, oh well, you got some experience, but you didn't really necessarily gain much ground.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the frustrating things about it. I mean, you are right that there are a lot of options open to you. They're very small options. It makes you really appreciate the complexity of what goes on in the game as you're trying to figure out what you're supposed to be doing at any given point. But I feel like the options that you are given are just, they feel so
Weaker.
mediocre, compared to other options that you're given on other maps.
The other complaint that I agree with as well is that it does snowball quite hard. And because of the fact that you can't go and do something major if you wipe the enemy team, like even if you're behind and you do a great job, you might still be shit out of luck.
Yeah, that's the most frustrating thing in the world when like you lose all of the altars, but like you win a team fight and you're like, yeah, we did it. All right.
They went down by 6.
So like there's not much you can do about it, and that can feel frustrating at times. And also I think brings in some weird scenarios where you have some late game comps that are just absolutely dominantly superior to early game comps. And but you'll have that team that has the late game comp, they'll be losing all game long, and they'll kind of have a moment like Shiro said where it's like you're down to like 2 health on your core, and then all of a sudden you just start winning every team fight. And you're like, oh, well, this is easy. We just keep winning all these team fights, and then you just keep riding that to more and more skulls to victory. And then a 3 altar thing spawns, and you don't have enough people to send, and you lose anyway. Like, that's frustrating.
Pretty much. Just like no winning that sometimes. It's like, oh.
It hurts. And like the worst thing about that map I find is that a lot of the time people you queue with will be so focused on winning the team fight because that's what gets you an advantage a lot of the times on other maps that they'll totally ignore the person capping the shrine. So you'll be ahead, like early game you'll be ahead and it'll look great, and then you'll turn around and their support is capping and you're like,
yeah, there has been situations like
Tronda, want to throw it out there, like anything?
Nope.
Maybe.
Nope. Busy winning.
Yeah, I have had times where it's like, oh, the shrines are up. Oh crap. And like you try to like mount off and run, and it's kind of too late because you weren't paying attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It can be really painful. And like I said, I think the worst thing for me is just all the altars have been like capped, and then your allies like chase people down to kill them, and they get like reverse team wiped, and I'm like, why are you still fighting? There's nothing to fight over.
Win!
Yeah.
I want EXP.
And I can understand though why a lot of competitive teams like it though, now that I've taken the time to step back and get rid of my Hero League frustration and sort of look at it based on what it is. Because even if you are in that weird place where you're like, well, crap, we're not really winning fights, it takes a while for them to kill you. So it's painful, and it's a painful loss because it takes so darn long. But it also gives you more time to get back into it if you actually have the capabilities and the composition to do so. And it gives them more opportunities to screw up. So I don't usually find that they do screw up. I usually find that if they're winning, they win. But I lost a game earlier where we were ahead by, I want to say 15, 16 skulls. Or I shouldn't say skulls, but damage. And yeah, we lost. Because we just didn't stop them from capping. We're like, let's get kills.
Girls.
It's not what you do.
So what do you think would be the optimal strategy on the map?
Stay together when altars happen and don't die. I feel like, well,
honestly,
don't die is pretty much.
I find that Abathur is unbelievably strong on that map. This is from a Hero League perspective. I find that Hero League and professional are very different. Hero League, I definitely think like heroes like Abathur are just ridiculous. Abathur and Falstad, because they've got a ton of map presence on a map that is not very big. So a Falstad can jump in and interrupt a shrine cap, and an Abathur can just push a fort and get away without any problems. And then you have heroes like Nova, who are typically a giant pain in the butt, and typically you're like, oh god, please do not lock in Nova. But on a map like Towers of Doom, she can actually work pretty well, and she's good at stopping people from capping. And she can get the stack she needs because the lanes are so small, unless you're against an Abathur.
Right.
So
I think Abathur is like such a weird good pick on that map because
it is.
like I said earlier, like forts don't give any kind of positional advantage. So like the idea of like going Abathur and split pushing with him is like so weird. But the fact is like those mines are so good, and the fact that he can just like walk over to a shrine and cap it himself if he needs to. It's just ridiculous. He's so good.
For me, it's the mines, and it's the fact that he can, at the very least, negate the amount of damage they can do to you if they get a shrine. Because if you get a keep, that's one less damage that they can do to you, right?
Right.
So that's the biggest difference. Like, you could be getting all of the shrines, but if you've got one keep, it doesn't matter. And if you've got none, then you're constantly taking a barrage of damage. So, like, Abathur is really good, and then he just ultimate evos into a fight, and there you go, you've got 2 thralls. Yeah, and talking about thrall, like, heroes like that, really good and competitive. Because Sundering is just, you were trying to cap that. Good for you. Nope. Like, it's...
Sure, tell us about saving people from Sundering. You, like, click to do Divine Shield, and then move half a screen away, and you're like, damn it!
I actually haven't gone in that situation, but I can imagine that could happen, and that would be very frustrating. And then you accidentally probably maybe hit someone else, because someone gets, like, pushed. You're about to click here, but then someone else got pushed there, and you click, you're like, oh no, and it's like someone totally useless, and you're like,
The support life.
I've had
But speaking of picking people off, though, I think one of the best ways to handle altar fights is just go ahead and make rotations really early and try to catch people during rotations. Because if you can catch one person during rotations, you're guaranteed to win a shrine fight.
And that's why death timer changes are so important on that map. Yes, it's a small map, but those timers really make a difference when it comes to shrines.
And I think that's also why Nova's god on that map, too.
Yeah. Only in Hero League, though. I wouldn't put it past pros to play her in pro, but I don't like her as much.
Alright, so now that we've talked extensively about the things that make us unhappy about Towers of Doom and some of the things that we also kind of enjoy about it, what do you think that they could change the map in any way? Do you think it's good as it is now? Do you think they could fix anything else? What do you think?
The only thing that I think could be a good quality of life change is modifying the gap between the back bell towers and your base. Because your base does a ton of damage, but like it's like you were talking about before, you don't really get much of an advantage outside of when shrines spawn if you capture a bell tower that's on your enemy side of the map. Because there's no room to navigate behind it. So it's not like you're getting a positional, like you said, you don't get a positional advantage. So changing that gap would be really good.
I have one thing that I totally forgot. I have one thing to add. Okay. So there's one more way to score, and that's if you secure all of the bell towers, then your core starts firing shots one by one.
Yeah, that's right.
Like a basketball player, question mark.
I've seen it happen before. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's rare, and it almost never happens, but that is a way to score. I think that if I were to change anything, I feel like the map architecture is still pretty flawed. I would like to see some gaps in between some of those altar lanes and the lanes where your keeps are, your forts are. Because what happens is you end up getting zoned out really hard, and those are like super hard choke points. And it's hard to get around for flanks and things like that, and that can spell disaster if you lose somebody who was already flanking, or if somebody gets caught on the wrong side of a wall or something like that. So I feel like it creates a lot of positional problems that could be solved and make the game a lot more complex.
I agree, but the question I posit to you is, does that then come down to like drafting? Can you just draft a composition that fixes that as an issue? Because a lot of teams do have that issue.
No, I
but
just
if
hate
you know
it.
if it's a problem, do you think it's just a draft thing, or does it just need to change?
I think as a map it would just improve greatly for all compositions if there were just
Okay.
a little bit more mobility between those lanes.
Okay.
There you go. You got anything?
Can't really think of anything that I would change to make it better. It is what it is in my brain. Can't really think about changing it by too much.
What is it in your opinion? Final opinion on the map.
I mean, I still don't like it. Like, if it's just me and someone else queuing, and there's like 3 other people who are individuals, like by themselves, I would find that pretty frustrating. But when you're on a team together, it makes it better because you do have to work together. Like, I don't like the map, but I do have good games on the map. So, I don't know. I'm like in that area.
That's fair.
It's still not my. I like it more than Haunted Mines. I'll say that.
That's okay. In my mind, like I'm becoming okay with Towers of Doom, and in my mind, Garden of Terror is slowly replacing Haunted Mines as the worst map ever. I hate it so much now.
But I like being the giants. Well, I don't really be the giant, but
I like to be Abathur and then be a plant. I feel like I'm evolving.
Yeah, well, you become empowered, right? It's one of those equalizing forces where you're like, now
I'm
I
a
can
super
smack you
slap.
and kill you.
Yeah,
now
slap
the
with their
slaps
next
actually
level
mean
flames.
things, right? All right. So, Christine, you have any final thoughts on Towers of Doom?
I like it. I don't hate it.
Change.
That's pretty much the biggest compliment I can give it, is that I don't hate it.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so that's gonna be all for tonight. We do have one announcement real quick, Christine.
We have a Twitter skin contest going on right now. And by contest, I mean giveaway. So retweet and follow our pinned post. And tomorrow, we will be randomly selecting. I think initially our goal was 5, but we might give away even 10 skins if we hit probably, let's say, if we hit 475 followers, we'll give away 10 skins to anybody who has retweeted and followed the pinned post on our Liquid Heroes Twitter.
at Nicholas Heroes.
At Liquid Heroes, yes. All right. Well, that pretty much wraps up for tonight. I hope everyone enjoyed us talking. It's a shame that we didn't have some other people on, but that's okay. I think we made a good run of it.
I'm sorry you had
nonetheless.
to deal with me.
I wasn't saying that.
I'm allowed to make my own jokes at myself.
You are.
All right, fair enough. All right, thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.